destroyed. The cause of the fire is unknown and under active investigation by both the Los Angeles County Fire Department, Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, and the U.S. Forest Service arson investigators. And the moment we learn the cause of this fire, we will advise the media. We also have a new fire start in the Acton area of Los Angeles County, the Lydia Fire. Estimated to be between 80 and 100 acres, 30% contained, and thankfully, forward progress has been stopped. As the Region 1 coordinator, I did request mutual aid from the 5 counties of Los Angeles, Orange County, Ventura, Santa Barbara, and San Luis Obispo counties yesterday. Additionally, last night, I contacted the State Office of Emergency Services and requested 250 additional engine companies from Northern California, staffed with over 1,000 personnel. At this time, the state of California is exercising their emergency compacts with the western states of Arizona, Nevada, Utah, Oregon, and Washington for additional firefighting resources and personnel to come to Los Angeles County to assist us with this widespread fire emergency. One data point is that we have 60 units responding from Oregon, 45 units responding from Washington, 10 units responding from New Mexico, 15 units responding from Utah, and numerous units responding from Arizona. Currently, the National Weather Service has predicted that this red flag warning will remain in effect for Los Angeles County and much of Ventura County through Friday. Thank you, and I would now like to invite up to the podium Los Angeles Police Chief Jim McDonald.
Thank you very much, Chief. I just want to say a few things and not to repeat what has already been said any more than needs to be stressed, but a sincere thank you to everybody who's out there in the impacted area for your patience and your support, to our first responders and support departments who have been out there from the very beginning, doing the very best they can to protect everybody. The word resilience was used, and that's what it's going to be. We're going to be an example of resilience in the very best sense of the word. We're going to bounce back from this, and it's going to be a challenging week ahead, but we're going to be able to get through it by working together. These have been unprecedented conditions, as you've heard over and over again, and the fire has been very unpredictable. That is why the need for vigilance is I can't stress enough how much we've got to pay attention to our neighbors, to our own yards and property, and be able to catch something quickly if we get something sparking off. I think that is critical. This is not over, long from over. Our job primarily is to assist in a support capacity our fire partners with evacuation, with traffic control, and with crime suppression. And on the crime suppression front, you've heard also about the potential for looting, people going in and taking advantage of the worst possible circumstances to be able to enrich themselves. That will not be tolerated at all. And my ask is that everybody stay out of the impacted areas unless you live there, unless you have a real reason to be there. Our officers will be out there. They'll be watching for this, and we're taking this very, very seriously. So I want to thank you again for your work with us, to our media partners, for all that you've been able to do to get the message out there and keep people safe. It's now my honor to introduce Los Angeles County Sheriff Robert Luna.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you all for covering this very important story. So as I stand here before you with my partners around me, please know that I have several hundred LA County deputy sheriffs along with other police officers who are working all the impacted areas out there. They're involved in evacuations. They're involved in traffic control, ingress and egress into the area. They're involved in security, which the chief talked about, and I talked about it earlier. We're up to 3 arrests with looting. That is 100% unacceptable. I'm going to repeat it. If you do not belong in these areas, do not go there. We have additional people that we've brought in just to make sure that people's property are left alone. These people have gone through so much. Don't put them through more than they have to go through. And then we're on humanitarian missions. I have deputies dropping off food, blankets, and other things to people who have either been evacuated or who just need somebody to talk to and frankly just give a hug to. Those are the kind of things that we're doing out there. I do want to talk about evacuations. Regarding the Eaton fire, we have over 70,000 of our community members who have been impacted by either evacuation orders and or warnings. The Palisades fire, approximately 60,000 who have been impacted by evacuation orders or warnings. As I said earlier, we have called in additional resources, not only for what's in front of us, but looking around the corner, what's next. Both fire chiefs have made it very clear we are not out of danger. There's a lot of work to be done. For me, in my other role as mutual aid coordinator, just to give you an example, as we are not only calling in our resources, we check with other departments, both in the county and outside the county, and we've provided Pasadena Police Department with additional resources, one from the Long Beach Police Department in a mutual aid capacity, and from the Orange County Sheriff's Department. So I'd like to thank those 2 departments. And that's something we do in law enforcement. Santa Monica's asked for help last night, and we also coordinate in helping with that as well. Chief Maroney mentioned it. Unfortunately, we do have 5 fatalities, we're praying that number doesn't increase, but there's a lot of work to do. And we'll see what happens there. We are up to 3 looting arrests as we speak. And then the last thing I'd like to leave you with again is earlier I spoke about evacuation warnings, evacuation orders, and a lot of road closures that are taking place in both of these locations. I'm not going to go through them all, but I encourage our community members to go to lacounty.gov/emergency, where you will get updates on those orders, warnings, and road closures. And again, I am really proud of our community overall. Sometimes we talk about the looting and people who aren't listening. I'm going to tell you, 99% of the people are listening, and I think that's why hopefully the injuries and fatalities and all those ugly things will stay down. So thank you to our LA County residents for working with us in partnership. And now I'd like to introduce LADWP General Manager Janice Quiñones.
Thank you and good evening. I'm Janice Quiñones, CEO and Chief Engineer of LADWP. In preparation for the windstorm, LADWP activated its emergency preparation plans and filled all 114 available water reservoirs and storage facilities throughout the city, including the 3 1-million-gallon tanks in the Palisades area. We also fuel all our generators serving our pump stations to ensure water will flow out through the emergency. We're working very closely and side by side with LA Fire Department and CAL FIRE in the command post to manage the water supplies. I want to be very clear that the water continues to flow in the Palisades area through our main system. We haven't had any disruption into the water system, but because the winds were severely limited, the air operations the number of fire hoses connected to the fire hydrants depleted our tanks in the area, specifically in higher elevations. We immediately implemented our contingency plans to provide water trucks to support our firefighters, and our crews are working on how to refill those tanks during this very moment. Conditions for our crew are very hazardous, so we ask for your patience. We have deployed 19 water tankers to continue to provide water to fire departments on the firefighting efforts, and our engineers continue to look at other options to connect our systems and fill those water tanks faster. We're also asking our customers on the west side to conserve water to make sure that we have water available and ready as the winds and the dry conditions continue. And in the Palisade area, because of the fire conditions, there is a boil water notice in effect for SIC code 90272, and the area north of San Vicente Boulevard and to the south. It's not citywide. Again, it's 90272 SIC code. If you want more information about the boil notices, go to ladwp.com for details. In terms of the power restoration efforts, LADWP has requested mutual assistance from Pacific Gas and Electric, and we're also working very closely with Southern California Edison to support each other while we restore power as quickly and safely as possible. As of 5 p.m. today, we have restored power to over 133,000 customers, and we have about 123 customers still out of power. We have 50 customers that have been out of power for more than 18 hours, and we're prioritizing those outages. Based on our current conditions and for the safety of our crews, if your power is out, you should plan for at least 24 hours before our crews can respond to make repairs. If you see a wire down, call 911 or report that to LADWP. Our number is 1-800-DIAL-DWP. Some areas, specifically those in fire areas, will take longer because we got to get clearance from the fire department to come and make repairs. I want to thank PG&E again at Southern California Edison and the Metropolitan Water District for their support in this response. And now I want to introduce LAUSD Superintendent Alberto Carvalho.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, for your leadership. I also want to thank the leadership of the city and the county, particularly those who are leading brave men and women as frontline warriors, our first responders, in dealing with this unprecedented set of circumstances. My function here today is to thank those who are collaborating in this community effort. Number one, to thank our workforce who today courageously brought 70% of our student body back to schools. They depend on nutrition, education, and support. But I also want to make an announcement specific to tomorrow. We certainly were hoping that conditions would significantly improve, that winds would subside, that the number of active fires would decrease, not necessarily increase. There would be a degree of stabilization. Unfortunately, despite the heroic efforts of our frontline men and women, that is not the case. Unfortunately, as a result of the unpredictability of high winds, a number of simultaneous fires throughout the community, a number of clouds of smoke, dust have permeated into our communities, making conditions less than desirable and in some instances downright dangerous. Our first priority is to protect the well-being of our workforce and our students. That is exactly what we are duty-bound to do. So after ample consultation with leaders, after clear examination of the data available and entering a second night of this crisis, it is prudent to announce that all schools across Los Angeles Unified will be closed tomorrow, effective immediately. That applies not only to K-12 centers, applies to early education centers, career and technical centers, as well as adult education centers. Obviously, beyond the bell activities and child care services will also be suspended. Considering the level of poverty and despair in our community, we are not only professionally but also morally responsible for providing some degree of sustenance as we often do. Therefore, we are activating 8 different centers for the distribution of food through a grab-and-go process for students of Los Angeles Unified. That will begin early tomorrow morning. For information about school closures and the location of the grab-and-go locations, please visit www.lusd.org. You will also find resources of support for our workforce and our students. Tomorrow, we will be pivoting 100% of our students to a continuity of learning model with virtual resources available for all of them. Sometime around 4 p.m. tomorrow, we will make a decision after consultation with leaders, as well as a careful examination of the trends as we observe them about what Friday will be like. I want to close by once again thanking our parents for their resilience, our workforce for their courage, and the remarkable men and women of this community who are working as first responders in very, very difficult circumstances. I will add that, unfortunately, the unthinkable has happened. We've lost 2 schools. 2 schools, elementary schools, providing educational services to over 700 students in the Palisades area have been completely destroyed. We're talking about Marquez Elementary and Palisades Elementary. 30% of Palisades High Charter School was destroyed. We were on site and could not believe what we were witnessing. We are prepared to relocate those students to provide a continuation of their educational services and restore normalcy to those families and those communities. Unas palabras en español. Me siento muy agradecido al liderazgo de nuestra alcaldesa, la señora Bass, y al liderazgo de la ciudad de Los Ángeles en nuestro condado. Hemos observado condiciones muy difíciles en nuestra comunidad y debido a estas condiciones sin precedente en nuestra ciudad, hemos decidido cerrar todos nuestros planteles escolares mañana. Mañana por las 4 de la tarde vamos a decidir lo que vamos a hacer para el día siguiente, viernes. Quiero agradecer a nuestra fuerza laboral, a nuestros maestros, nuestros directores de escuela, nuestro personal de apoyo y también a las personas, los bomberos, los policías y el liderazgo de nuestra comunidad por el nivel de colaboración en apoyo a nuestro sistema escolar. Estamos preparados para abrir 8 centros de distribución de comidas gratis para nuestros estudiantes, empezando mañana. Una vez más, quiero agradecer a los esfuerzos de nuestra comunidad durante una crisis sin precedente aquí en Los Ángeles. Thank you very much.
Okay, everyone. I was just informed that we have another brush fire that has just broken out in the Hollywood Hills near Rustic Canyon.
I missed that.
Yes. I'll start over. So I just want to announce very, very quickly that we have a new brush fire that has just broken out within the last 5 minutes in the Hollywood Hills near Runyon Canyon. I don't have a lot of information. I can tell you we're throwing all of our available resources at it as we speak. I am seeing active water drops as we speak. As we have more information, we'll disseminate this to all of you. But I'm going to go ahead and excuse myself so we can go ahead and start to strategize and move towards mitigating this additional major emergency in the city. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chief, very much for that information and for your cooperation. And I just have to say that Los Angeles, as a region, as a county, as a city, we will get through this. We will stay together. We will be strong. We will make it through these next several days, and then we will begin the recovery period. And let me just say that the reason I'm so confident in that is, one, because of my faith in Angelenos, period, but also because of the leadership that is here. You see every level of government working together, as you have on several occasions over the last couple of years. And I just remember 2 years ago when we were here for a first ever weather event in Los Angeles, a potential hurricane. And I think we all understand in our city that due to climate change, we're going to continue to see very unusual weather events. And this is a historic event considering the strength of the winds. I also want to acknowledge that we're joined here by the head of the firefighter union, United Firefighters of Los Angeles City, Freddie Escobar. Thank you, and please give our regards to the men and women of the firefighters who have kept us safe and who have saved lives. I will open it up for questions now. Oh, by the way, let me acknowledge, too, that we have a number of members who are general managers of various departments, should you have a specific question.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Question about the water supply issue. I know this is unprecedented in so many ways, and right now there's a lot of raw emotions about what's happened. But for residents who are angry and even perhaps blaming the city for not having enough water supply, I'm curious what your response to that would be able to share.
Well, let me make a comment, but then I would also invite up our general manager from the DWP. So, as I just mentioned, you know, this is an absolutely unprecedented event. It has been many, many years since we faced this strong winds. So the water pressure dropped as a result of the massive need to fight this unprecedented incident. Water remains available in the Palisades through hydrants, but also through water tankers that have been deployed. Claims that the tanks weren't full are false. On Monday evening, all available water tanks were filled before the fire. DWP is standing by to refill those tanks immediately when it's possible. DWP and LAFD are both managing water resources together from the command center. And just let me say that when you have events like this, as you mentioned, where emotions are high, I mean, so many people have been affected. Our families, our friends have been affected, and it's easy to get caught up in information that is not accurate, which is the reason why we do press conferences exactly like this, because we want people to have accurate information. And I think most of us know that the internet is not always the best place to get accurate information. But with that, let me call on our general manager who could give you more specific information.
Thank you, Mayor. And I will second your comments. We did fill all 3 tanks. There were 3 million gallons of water available when this fire started. As I mentioned in the morning, we saw 4 times the demands of water that we've ever seen in the system. We opened every valve available to push as much water into the Palisades area. This fire was different and unprecedented because they didn't have air resources to fight it. So you're fighting a wildfire with a fire hydrant system. Fire hydrants are not made to fight multiple houses, hundreds of houses at a time. They're made to fight 1 or 2 houses when they come in. And so we were trying, for us, for DWP, our first priority was to get water to the fire department for life safety. And that was what we were trying to do. To this day, we're still continuing working very closely with Metropolitan Water Department to try to make connections into their system and bring water pressure up so that we can fill the tanks. But in order for me to fill the tanks, I had to ask the fire department to stop fighting the fire. And that's a very tough operational decision to make. And so the fire department and DWP, we worked together on creating tactical operations in the process to make sure that they had enough water to continue fighting the fire. We were able to bring water with water tankers until we can get this engineering solution in play. We tried 3 contingency plans and all failed because we were also in very hazardous conditions where our crews had to be evacuated because the fire was so active around our area. But we have not given up, and we expect to have a solution very soon to make sure that we have water in those tanks and keep pushing water into the higher elevations. I also want to mention there's about 1,000 hydrants in that Palisades area. About 20% of those were without water. So less than 200 hydrants were without water. The rest we were supplying water to. So it's just a very challenging environment. But our goal continues to make sure that we are supporting the firefighting efforts and at the same time keeping the power on in those areas so that our water pumps are functioning and that we're able to fight the fires in other areas of the region, because as you know, it's not just Palisades that's burning.
In addition to the question about the could you hold on one second? Let me just acknowledge Council President Marquise Harris Dawson and Council Member Imelda Padilla. Also, 80% fire hydrants with water. If you want accurate information, notify LA.org. Dave?
In addition to the concerns about water pressure, there have also been criticisms from Rick Caruso, who said there was insufficient brush clearance by the city and county, from others who pointed out that the fire department had seen a reduction in its budget last spring, and that you were overseas when you should have been here. And I'm wondering, if any of these claims hit the mark, and if not, what is the real story?
Well, let me just say that we are actively fighting this fire, and this is a time for vigilance and action, not speculation. This is a time for Angelenos to come together, united, to protect themselves and their families and also each other. So what we are seeing is the result of 8 months of negligible rain and winds that have not been seen in LA in at least 14 years. It's a deadly combination, and I've been in constant contact with our fire commanders on the ground and our partners at every level of government. I've spoken to President Biden's Chief of Staff, Secretary Mayorkas from Homeland Security, Secretary Todman from Housing and Urban Development, Senator Padilla, Governor Newsom. This is going to be an effort of all of us coming together, and we have to resist any effort to pull us apart. In terms of my flight home, I was on a military flight, as I mentioned, which allowed me to be in constant communication. I was on the phone, on the plane, almost every hour of the flight. So although I was not physically here, I was in contact with many of the individuals that are standing here throughout the entire time. When my flight landed, immediately went to the fire zone and saw what happened in Pacific Palisades. Thank you.
Did you also have access when you were on your commercial flight?
I did have access on my commercial flight, like most people do.
In terms of the chaos from the Pacific Palisades fire, the evacuation obviously has spread really quickly. Was there anything else that led to cars, people having to abandon their cars, people not being able to get out? Was there any systems that didn't work the way they were supposed to that led, contributed to that chaotic situation?
As far as plans for something like that, you hope that you can get up there. These are narrow roads in many cases, and the reality is you hope that people will pull to the side. People panic. Some people stop in the middle of the roadway, not allowing people behind them to get by. There's pressure to evacuate. Some people then left their car, and it could have been disabled. It could have been a situation where they were disoriented or panicked, and they left, and everybody behind them is stuck behind them. They also then feel the pressure of the fire and want to leave, and all of a sudden you have a whole street blocked, as we saw in this case, with vehicles. The fire department went in there, assessed it, and did what they had to do by moving those vehicles to be able to get fire apparatus to the emergency.
Hi. When your fire chief, unfortunately left, was assessing the impacts of last year's decision to reduce the budget, she wrote a memo 4 weeks ago.
Go ahead. I'm
sorry, go ahead. She wrote a memo 4 weeks ago that said the reduction has severely limited the LAFD's capacity to prepare for, train for, and respond to large-scale emergencies like wildfires, and specifically as to the helicopters. Without this funding, pilot compliance and readiness are jeopardized and aerial firefighting capabilities are diminished. And that sounds kind of alarming. How concerned are you that her assessment has affected what's played out in the city in the last day?
Well, I am confident that it did not. I will call up a representative from the fire department to address that. But I will also say that within this fiscal year, LAFD actually would go above what was allocated on July 1st. Did you want to make a comment?
So, good evening, Jacob Robbie, PIO, LAFD. So when we discussed, as the fire chief discussed earlier, this is an absolutely unprecedented event. We have, we have another fire that just broke out. Any fire department, even our size, is stressed thin, which is why we call in our mutual aid partners, our additional resources. Of course, we can always use more resources, which is why we ask for more resources, because we always want to be the most prepared we possibly can to get ready for the next fire, because we don't know what these winds are going to do. This is something that we have not seen. In my 16 years in LAFD and 5 years in another fire department, I've never seen winds that made it to the Pacific Ocean, turned around and went back up the canyon. So this is not something that any fire department can be prepared for, and we always want to have more resources, and we're always going to ask the mayor for more resources for that.
In the last 6 months since this fiscal year began, has there been training that wasn't done, preparations that weren't made because there wasn't money?
I'm not going to be able to speak on the fire chief on that aspect of it, so I'm going to defer to Chief Crowley on that. Okay.
Can I ask Chief Maroney or Sheriff Luna about the 5 deaths? Do we know anything about where these people were found? What were the circumstances around these deaths? Any other details you can share?
I can tell you that they were found in the impacted area, specifically what caused it, and the specific details. Our goal is to find out. As I stand here before you, I don't know yet. We did dispatch homicide detectives out there just to make sure that everything is done appropriately. And at the right time, we'll forward all of you the information that we get. At the end of the day, it's absolutely tragic.
Any other questions? Thank you so much, everybody.
All right, as you see, we were just listening into that coverage there, of course, of these LA wildfires, of this breaking news that we've been continuing to follow live here on Live Now from Fox 4. The last day or so, of course, the devastation has continued to sweep across the areas there in Southern California. So we do want to continue to show you some of these live shots that we do have there on the ground, showing you the impacted areas as well. If you want to take a look here, you can see this fire has been burning throughout the course of that news conference. We were able to put a camera on it, but you see how the flames are just taking over these homes there that are in the Pacific Palisades area, as well as the Hearst fire and the Eaton fire as well. Both of those, I should say all 3 of those have spread to multiple areas and covering multiple acres at this time. Also want to show you a look that we have as well. This is the shot that we brought you just I should say about an hour or so ago when it was still light outside, but that is the Bank of America building. And as you can see there, it is still on fire at this time as those first responders are continuing their work to put out the flames. But it has been so much devastation happening around the Southern California area. Do want to show you just for some context here as well. These are the 3 major fires that we have been following over the last few hours. As you're seeing them on your screen here, this is the Palisades fire down there to the south. But as we zoom in just a bit here, you can see that this fire is truly right there on the coast, and you'll be able to see, like as the PIO just mentioned seconds ago, they've never seen fires like this, talking about the Palisades fire and how it came down the canyon, met up with the ocean, and then turned around and started to go back up the canyon. At this time, according to this map that we do have from the county of Los Angeles, Cal Fire specifically, we're able to see that this fire is nearly at 16,000 acres. Very heartbreaking as we're continuing to bring you these live images. Did want to show you that before we take this time now to step away for a 2-minute break. On the other side of that break, though, we're going to rejoin that coverage there from Fox 11 in Los Angeles as they catch up with some of their reporters as they're continuing to get aerials of that. In fact, let's go ahead and dip right into them right now. They're covering one of the latest fires that has just erupted. This is called the Sunset Fire. It's erupting there in the Hollywood Hills. They do have a live shot of it. Let's take their coverage.
Let's get a look at what you're seeing behind you.
Yes, Alex, we're at Lake and Mendocino right here in the heart of this area. And as you can imagine, people who live around here, they have been so very terrified, wondering if their home might be next. Joining me live right now is Eve Anna Manley, and we thank you so much for standing by tonight. I know that you evacuated last night. You felt, I don't know, strong enough, safe enough to come home. Why?
Well, my neighbors were home checking out if we had a house to come home to or not. So, you know, then the winds also had calmed down. So I made my way back up here from Eagle Rock, and my house was still standing.
I know that you've got a lot of emotion about it. You love this community. Some of your neighbors have lost their homes. Just share some of that human interaction that you've had.
Well, like, you know, one of my friends, it's a couple with 2 young daughters, and their house was one of the first ones.
Vill du skapa en egen hemsida men tycker att det känns svårt? Med Strato blir dina idéer verklighet utan onödigt krångel. Ont om tid? Våra smarta AI-verktyg fixar texter, bilder och design åt dig så att din hemsida kan publiceras online på nolltid. Hos Strato får du allt du behöver för din webbplats, inklusive egen domän och e-post. Kom igång idag för 0 kronor första året. Läs mer på strato.se. Strato.
Into that home.
That's correct. And sometimes we grieve a structure like it was a person, you know, because we've become so attached to where we live or where we've visited or all those memories, you know.
Well, we are watching as these valiant firefighters are so busy here on the scene. Earlier, if you looked over my shoulder, that was a B of A fully engulfed. They've pretty much got a handle on it now. And it sounds like, okay, you know, it's a structure. What does that mean? But you were actually telling me, Miss Manley, that you have a deep connection to that B of A.
Yeah, that was my bank, and I hope my $60,000 in the safe deposit box is still there someday, and my birth certificate and all my important papers. But yeah, that was my bank. I used to walk up there every month and pay my mortgage, and at least my house is paid off now, and it's still standing.
Good for you. I think that you've been blessed, actually. And I hope that you continue to get good news. We thank you for standing by to talk to us here live. If we spin around, you can actually see off to the left here, that is a structure that is still fully engulfed. While we've been here, we haven't actually seen water being doused on it. I'm sure that Sophie-like choices have to be made all the time because they're contending with the winds and all the issues we've been discussing over the last couple of days. But this is a true Southern California moment. Alex, I know you grew up here, as did I, and sadly, we have seen this story over and over again. I've covered so many fires over the course of my career in Laguna Beach, in Malibu, in the Valley. We've seen it, and as awesome as it is to live here because it's a beautiful place, it also has been quite unlucky for a series of fires that have been catastrophic to so many families over the years. And, you know, our hats off to all the first responders who are out here just doing an incredible job. I'm Laura Diaz reporting live from Altadena now, sending it back to you.
All right, Laura, thank you. We appreciate it for your coverage. If you're just joining us, we have word of a brand new fire that erupted in the Hollywood Hills. We reported this just a couple minutes ago. Skyfox up and over this. This is right near the Hollywood sign in the vicinity of Runyon Canyon, which is so popular with so many people. We have new mandatory evacuations that are underway. I'm going to read these to you. They are for Laurel Canyon Boulevard on the west, Mulholland Drive to the north, the 101 freeway on the east, and Hollywood Boulevard on the south. Again, this is a new fire in the Hollywood Hills. It's being dubbed the Sunset Fire. It broke out within the last few minutes, reported at 10 to 20 acres, and now mandatory evacuations are underway. You see as we zoom in from Skyfox, the fire crews and those engines making their way down. A lot of people use this to go for their hikes, of course. Very, very popular. We have Gina She has been covering the Eaton fire for us. She is making her way to the Sunset fire now to be on the ground to be able to bring you the latest.
That is an amazing picture as we stay with this for a second. Those roads, which are designed in large part so that you can fight a fire like this, and you see them going right up to the flames right there. Amazing. I mean, what we didn't have last night because it was just too dangerous with the winds was Skyfox to watch these firefights underway, and tonight we do have that, and we have a very interesting perspective on this firefight. And the other thing that we didn't have last night was any help from the air in terms of air resources to drop water, but we do have that now. Hopefully that can make a difference here on this particular firefight. But you think of, one of the more densely populated areas of Southern California, right in the middle of Hollywood, Runyon Canyon, and you think of everybody that lives in the Hollywood area, the West Hollywood area, and so many iconic residents in the Hollywood Hills itself as well. And now that area is a part of all of this. So, we're going to keep an eye on this. In the meantime, let's check out what's happening in Pacific Palisades, that fight.
All right, we have just been listening in to Fox 11 LA's coverage there of this brand new fire, as you just heard.